Thank you all for joining us tonight. Before we dive into the session theme and introduce our speakers, just a few reminders. Number one is please keep your microphones muted while someone is presenting. Feel free to submit your questions to the chat at any time. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A session after our speakers' presentations. Now, the title of our Episode 1 of the EPHSA Talk Season 2 is Mind Matters, Challenges and Opportunities in Mental Health as a Public Health Concern. This topic was chosen in response to the request from our members and to commemorate the World Mental Health Month. And as mentioned, we have 3 segments tonight. Our first is the expert's view. Our speaker for this segment is a research fellow and senior occupational therapist at the University of Sheffield and also a senior lecturer at the Sheffield Hallam University. With a clinical background specializing in youth mental health, she will discuss why mental well-being in the workplace is a public health concern. She'll also draw on things from a recent research project and other relevant studies to highlight key issues and solutions. Please join me in welcoming, with a virtual applause, our first speaker, Sally Olsen.
So I'm going to be talking to you today about mental health and how we can view that with a public health lens. And I'm going to use as a case study workforce wellbeing, because that's something we're all probably involved in. We are all probably working or studying or thinking about work. So how and why is that a public health issue? And that's what I want to cover today. And I'm going to quickly start my timer because I'm a terror for running over. Okay, so just to say a little bit about myself, I wouldn't deem myself an expert in this, but I've had quite a long clinical career in mental health as an occupational therapist, working mainly all in the UK, and voluntary work elsewhere in the world. But most of my mental health work clinically has been in inner London and rural communities in the Midlands and the north of the UK. Many of these being really highly deprived communities. And most of my work has been a focus on serious mental illness. So I might use the term SMI today. So that means serious mental illness, and a range of different diagnoses. But my research journey has had maybe more of a health service focus, and then merging more recently into a public health focus. So that's what I'm going to draw on today. And I also lecture across a range of different subjects, both kind of public health, clinical research, as well as my clinical background in occupational therapy. So I just want you to take a moment. I don't want you to shout out, but just mentally and internally just think about, what do you think of when you see those words, mental health and your mental well-being? Because that means something to each one of us in this room. We might immediately come up with those diagnoses, those illnesses, those conditions. We might think about rates in society of different conditions. We might think about mortality or suicide rates. We might think of this on a very individual basis about what it means to us and kind of lived experience. But I guess what we need to think about as well today is, when we think about it with a public health lens, is when we think about how can we judge whether a society, a community, a group is mentally well, and what's the purpose and importance of that. So hopefully we're going to touch on that today. So again, quite often we have this spectrum or continuum in health. And I mean health as a whole, where we think about the green arrow being healthy, being well, and the red arrow meaning we have a diagnosis. We must be ill. We are unwell. But mental health is so different from this. There is no spectrum. There is no just being healthy and well, because if we look at statistics, we can say that the vast majority of us, even in this room, statistically, within our lifetime, will experience mental unwellness. Okay, that doesn't mean we will be diagnosed, but it does mean that we are all on this spectrum. Okay, so, and just to kind of think about this globally, it's taken a long time to maybe get into the news, get into the public perspective that mental health is and should be viewed on par with physical health, and that we are now thinking about mental health, particularly in certain communities and groups in society, as an epidemic, that so many people are unwell. And I think it rates, don't quote me on this statistic, but I think it's about 1/3 of total disease burden now is seen within mental health, with depression being the largest across Europe. Okay. And that's kind of what we're seeing. So what I was saying about a cumulative lifetime risk, I think is about 50% by the time we reach our 65 years old. So by the time we finish in working age, although I think with my mortgage I'm going to be working a lot longer, that we will experience mental disorder at some point within that. So I guess where this then came within kind of public health policy is suddenly there's a lot of documentation that sprang out using terms such as this, many others exist, saying there was no health without mental health. So this is one of the key ones within the UK that gained a lot of traction within public health. And it was funded by Public Health England. Right back in 2015, 2016, this came about. And that's when suddenly there was an awareness that mental health problems are associated with economic deprivation, with poverty, with stigma, with social exclusion, with employment problems. And we realised that particularly in a younger population, with children and young people, that their burden of mental disorder is increasing, and that many people's pathway to mental ill health or disorder starts very young. So there was suddenly this growing awareness, if we want a healthy society, we need to be looking right back into our youth all the way through. And I think it's estimated, and again, the statistics vary across different countries. Within the UK in 2022, it was looking about 15% of working age adults had already a mental health disorder that has been diagnosed or received treatment. Okay, and that could be therapy, it could be medication, it's quite a wide collective there. Okay. So therefore, public mental health, I should say, became suddenly fundamental to public health. And that was because we suddenly realised that mental health can be both a determinant of poor physical health, as well as being a consequence. So they're very symbiotic, can't get my words out, relationship there. And therefore, public health approach needed to look at kind of promoting mental well-being, as well as preventing, and there's a big emphasis on preventing future mental health problems arising, particularly in younger people and younger working age people. And so far there's been a lot more. Even the World Health Organization has recently, I think last year or the year before, published documentation looking at how do we create healthy, mentally healthy workforces as well as communities. So this is a really growing area. Bear with me whilst I just click my slides through. And again, so why is mental health and wellbeing a public health issue? So hopefully I've already covered that in my previous slides, but most importantly, that public health, mental health approach needs to be concerned with promoting mental health wellbeing, preventing future mental health problems, as well as looking at recovery and better recovery pathways and access to mental health problems. So these are the kind of the key ones that came up across my research career about why mental health needs to take on board mental health and have an approach and an agenda within mental health. And I kind of highlighted the ones that I've probably been most involved with, but more recently it's been very much about workplace wellbeing, which I'm going to go on to now talk about and focus on, as well as access to treatment and care within healthcare systems, which is a public health issue, because if the right communities or the right people are not finding ways and access into healthcare, then there is a problem and we're going to have an unwell society. So we need to think about how do we promote inclusivity and inclusion into healthcare systems. How do we reduce that stigma and discrimination, particularly in deprived communities and groups? Okay. So these are just some of the key areas that I've been particularly involved in. So just to give you a really brief example, social prescribing is one that's really big on the agenda, and that looks about when we take a public health approach, we need to think about how do we move access and awareness and find a way that we can promote mental health within communities that maybe aren't accessing healthcare. And quite often, this is where people with very complex needs, so people that might have a dual diagnosis or comorbidity of both physical and mental health needs, quite often they're isolated. And this we looked at particularly with older adults because we knew that isolation increases risk of mental unwellness. So we looked at how can we go into community groups and speak about mental health? Could we get mental health practitioners to go and visit and promote mental health? Or ways, strategies to promote better mental engagement. So we had people doing yoga sessions, Tai Chi sessions. We had people going in talking about how food can influence your mental wellness and well-being, as well as providing an environment that allowed connection, which ultimately, when we mapped it, improved people's mental health outcomes, particularly in anxiety and depression, which is really exciting. We also had a lot about upskilling workforce, because quite often in a lot of our healthcare systems across Europe, we have areas that you go to if you're mentally unwell and areas that you go to if you're physically unwell. But unfortunately, humans, we don't work like that. We don't work in silos. We have health, which includes mental health and it includes physical health. So we looked at how can we better train our healthcare professionals to be dual practitioners, to be able to cope with if somebody says they are suicidal, to not shut that down, not shut that door, because they're there to bandage somebody, to do a wound maintenance, that they have the skill to be able to work with those individuals. And that's one that we looked at. And again, that had really great initiatives. Then we looked at workplace wellbeing, which I'm not going to talk about now because that's what I'm going to go on to in the next 4 minutes. Okay, so workplace mental wellbeing. If there is anything you can take away from this today, is that workplace mental health wellbeing is a public health concern. Why is that? Because most of us are working in our careers. Work is part of society and it has a huge impact on our both economy, our community. And if people are becoming unwell because of work or within work and not being supported, we have a serious problem. Okay, and we found that within Great Britain, for instance, those that are unemployed have between a 4 and 10 times more likely to develop anxiety and depression. And that's not looking at other non-diagnosed conditions. And that's huge. Also to say that this is probably one of the emerging areas of public health. So I love this World Health Organization quote, so I'm really sorry for quoting at you. But I just want to allow you just to read that for a moment. For a large proportion of the global population, mental health and work are integrally intertwined. Mental health is more than the absence of mental health conditions. Rather, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, to realize their abilities to learn, so including that education within this setting, and work well and to contribute to their communities. So this is really important. And this comes from the World Health Guidelines on Mental Health at Work, which I definitely recommend anyone interested taking a little gander at a little look. And just to bore you with some brief statistics, but just to say why this is a public health issue as well, just to really drill home, that almost 200 million working days were lost because of sickness or injury. And in the UK, that accounted to about 150 billion pounds being lost. So economically, this is an issue. We know that depression and anxiety are estimated to cost the global economy. This is in America, sorry, I couldn't find equivalent UK, Europe statistics here, but about 1 trillion. Okay, and that's by loss of productivity. And also important to say mental health issues account for about just under 8% of all sickness from work. And that's within the UK. That's a lot more. In America, slightly less than France. I think in France it's about 6%. And just to say that the largest workforces report the highest sickness levels. So those working in the healthcare system, particularly in the UK, which is one of the biggest employers, have the highest sickness levels. So there's something about working in these huge organizations that seems to have a higher sickness level. Okay. And in public health, we need to be considering that we know that so many people work about in the UK. It's something like, it's, you know, I can't remember, it's like 80 something percent of the population are in employment. So we know that this is a prime community setting to promote mental health and well-being, but something's maybe awry, something's not going right. We know that if people are working, it reduces their risks of mortality, cardiovascular disease, mental health, as well as suicide. So if people are engaged in work and productivity, and that's including voluntary work and study, it has a better impact. So if we think about this personally, and again, this is for you just to reflect on, and think about what keeps you well at work. Is it those communities around you? Is it the individuals? Is it being involved in something that you feel like might make a difference, you might be able to engage in? All of this is really important. We completed a study, and I'm going to do this whistle stop tour, please free to ask me questions on this, where we completed a huge realist review and a realist multi-site organizational case study evaluation, which is quite a mouthful as a research project. We focused on healthcare because that's where the big issue is within the UK. And we know that within staff surveys, they've got one of the highest intentions to leave, as well as the highest rates of people saying that they have taken time off because of mental stress and workplace stress. So we reviewed over 80 kind of published papers. We completed interviews as well as completing work with their senior management and focus groups around their policies and practices. And what we found, there's this intrinsic link between job satisfaction, mental well-being, and retention. We know that people are not trained effectively within how to discuss mental health. So managers don't know how to deal with it when somebody comes up to them. They don't know how to support their colleagues, and they don't have investment in interventions that are effective. So we know that just one-off, have a wellbeing day, doesn't work. There needs to be something systemic throughout the organisation, and that's where public health can hopefully come in and promote it. We know that people need to feel part of a community, have a sense of belonging and acceptance, and that works within your local community as well as your work community. We know that people need psychologically safety at work, so there needs to be anti-bullying campaigns within the workplace. It's vital for improving mental well-being. And also that people come to work with pre-existing mental health conditions and might take time off sick because of pre-existing mental health conditions. It's not all caused by workplace. And that needs to be on par with people with pre-existing physical health conditions. So my last slide, I promise you, because I know I'm like 1 minute over. Where next for work, mental health at work and public health? Well, there's a huge funding imbalance. It's a big problem because it's an emerging area of public health. So we need more money to do better research. That's crucial. But we really need to make sure that mental health receives the same billing and priorities physical health within workplace policy particularly. That's really crucial. That's emerging. We need to understand the risks of workplaces, such as having more and more people working at distance from home, online, in isolation. We don't understand the risks yet and the impact on mental health. That's still emerging, but we know it's a concern. We need to understand particularly about gaining and maintaining employment for people that already live with mental health conditions, because there's a huge inequality there. And that is a massive issue, as well as some other areas. But I do apologise that I have gone over, but I wanted to open it up because I talked fast and I talked at you, and I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much, Sally, for that very insightful presentation. There are some questions sent to me. I will read 2 questions. The first is, based on your experience, how is mental health or mental well-being integrated into public health services in the UK and in other places that you know of?
So a really interesting one, and I'm going to answer this with a bit of a lens about workplace well-being, if that's okay. So I do apologise. It is being integrated a lot through initiatives. So if we look at some of the health promotion initiatives that are going across, particularly the workplace, but it's now filtering into education as well, we're seeing a lot about kind of mental health first aid, which is a term that I don't necessarily feel 100% comfortable with, but it's where we are educating each other to understand basic mental health conditions, signs, symptoms of. We are looking about what are the key things we can do to keep yourself well. We are looking at it rather than thinking about first aid kits being just there as a bandage for physical health conditions, a plaster, a cream to rub on. We're thinking about that we all need this equivalent within mental health, and we need to be doing it at an earlier stage. So what I'm really interested in within a workplace is that how do we address giving people the skills to deal with the stress that we all experience when we're in work, the pressures that are put on people and individually, the environments we have to work in. So being able to have a voice in an online meeting. But they should be things that we are training people much, much earlier. We need to be thinking about our workplace health, mental health, when people enter education, because we need to think about that longevity into people's future careers rather than what is happening a little bit is a very reactional public health approach where we put things in after the mental health conditions are already in situ. And I think that's because public health or mental public health is still really emerging. And I think we're going to get there, but we really need to think about what do we need to do to keep people well right from the beginning, and particularly within education. I think that's really crucial where we can promote strategies, techniques to enable our youth to have that skill set to draw on when they enter really high pressured, high stressful environments that we know are likely to cause mental disorder, unwellness. So I think that's something that I would say is where it's really coming on in the UK, and we're looking at it, and implementing it, and we're evaluating it. What we're definitely realizing that putting a plaster on mental health does not work. So the strategies where we say we're going to teach people resilience in the workplace, it doesn't work right at the beginning. We need to be doing that resilience training right at the beginning when they enter environments such as education.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very clear. Another question here is related to what you said that mental public health is still emerging. So many of the participants here are students, and some have psychology background as well. So one question is, what kind of career opportunities do you think are available for public health professionals in mental health, and what does the future look like for this field?
Do you know what? I hope, because I can only talk, that this is an area where I think it depends what country you're planning to work on, your government, and where they're prioritising. So I can't answer across the board. Within the UK, currently, there is a huge push within young person mental health, and we are needing people to come in and look strategically at not only interventions, but approaches and training to enable people that already work in different areas, students, to understand mental health. So I think there is a huge need for this. I think the need is growing. The voice of people wanting better mental health and mental health to be prioritized is becoming louder and louder, particularly in the younger society groups. I worry that we're still a bit slow and this is not happening quick enough. I think those of you that have a psychology background, you stand yourself in an amazing opportunity. I think we need people that have that awareness to consider psychologically the needs of the group. And those of you that maybe have clinical backgrounds as well, I think that you again are going to be sought after. But I think it is by country, it is developing at different rates across Europe. And definitely there are areas where it is blooming and areas where I would say it is dragging a little bit more slowly. But I think there's huge ones, and looking at older person wellbeing, reducing isolation. How do we keep older people well? Because people are living longer. There's a huge thing. And when people live well longer, they need to live mentally well longer because it's all part of it. Huge thing within education and a huge thing within workplace wellbeing, particularly COVID pandemic, really rapidly increase workplace wellbeing and the need that actually if people don't work, they don't work productively, we lose money by society. And that is a big driver, unfortunately. Money is a huge driver across the board. So where we can tie to that and look at economic outcomes, I think we, from a public health perspective, we will be doing very well and we'll be able to develop this area. So I'm really hopeful, Bonnie. I want to be really more positive, but there's more and more job opportunities coming up, and I'm seeing more and more jobs coming up, particularly in the UK. They are coming and they are emerging. They're not always paid as well as they should be, though. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sally. I think we'll be talking more about this with our next presenter who will be talking about careers in mental health in the field of public health. Okay. I'm sure there are people who want to ask more questions, but we are pressed for time. If you have questions addressed to Sally, Sally, you are willing to give them your email address, right? Or we can
Yeah,
share it with them.
I've got to unfortunately shoot off a bit early. So I'm going to pop my email address and I'll share my slides with you, Bonnie, to share out because it's got a load of references on.
Okay. And then please keep sending your questions to our group chat. Okay, once again, thank you very much, Sally, for the very insightful presentation and for enlightening us on why mental well-being in the workplace is a public health issue, including its impacts on the economy, productivity, the health workers, even the health workers themselves. Once again, thank you very much for your time. Okay. As mentioned earlier, we have three segments for this EPHSA talk. We're done with the first one, but before we proceed to the next, let us have a quick game just to keep everybody engaged and energized. I will turn over the microphone to Samia.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, as Bonnie said, like after this interesting presentation, we will have like a short break or of entertainment space to test our knowledge and awareness about mental health in honor of October, that it's the Mental Health Month. So we invite you. Bonnie is going to share the screen so that you can join us in a Kahoot game. Okay, this is easy if you haven't before done a Kahoot game. So you just have to scan the QR code that it's going to be presented just right now. And let's check. Do we have there it is. So please, everyone, join us in this Kahoot game so that we can test our knowledge regarding to mental health. So please, you can join us scanning the QR code, or if you are in your laptop or in other platform, you can enter to kahoot.it and enter this pin game. So we're going to wait a little bit to have a few participants, and we are going to start in a few minutes. Please, people, join. Okay, we have 10 participants. Let's wait a little bit more so that we can have a few more. Okay. Are we ready, Bonnie?
Yes.
There we go. So this is just 5 questions, so be quick. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1, and which of the following is a common symptom of depression? There you go, people. The first one is feeling sad or hopeless for a long time. Second, temporary anxiety. The third is brief moments of stress. And the fourth response or possible response is wanting to exercise more. Which one would be the answer? There we go. The first one, of course, it's a symptom of depression regarded to feeling sad or hopeless for a long time. Which one is the first one? Ooh, FB is the winner, the fastest to respond to this first question. Okay, let's go. Let's move on to this one. The next one is, what does the term mental health primarily refer to? So the first answer is, or possible answer is, feeling happy all the time. The second is a person's emotional, psychological, or social well-being. The third is the absence of any problems or challenges. And for possible answer, physical strength and endurance. Of course, the second is the correct answer. And almost everyone did it. And FB remains to the to the fastest player. Okay, people, move on. Let's go to the third, which is, which of the following is a common mental health disorder worldwide? Let's see if you know. Let's see how much we know about this. The first one is general anxiety disorder. The second, schizophrenia. The third, a specific phobia such as fear or flying. And the fourth is seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. The first one is general anxiety disorder is the correct answer. Due to the prevalence of this disorder worldwide. And now, everything's changed. OC is right now the winner and the score, the first one in this is in first place, followed by Beck and then Ala. Okay, let's go to the fourth question, which is, which lifestyle habit has been shown to improve mental health? Okay, let's check. Working longer hours to avoid stress, maybe. Sleeping less and skipping meals. The third possible answer is staying indoors all the time. And the fourth, regular exercise and healthy sleep. Very good. Almost everyone got it correct. Very good. And how's the scoreboard? Oh, see. Ooh, on fire. Okay, let's move on. This one is the last one, people. Mental health stigma can be reduced by, well, the first one, avoid people with mental health issues. Second, limiting discussing about mental health to clinical settings only. The third, encouraging open dialogue and education about mental health. And the fourth, good, encouraging open dialogue and education about mental health. It's the correct one, of course. Very good, very good. Okay, let's check. Let's check the podium. Are you ready, people? Woo! In third place, MA. Bravo. In second place, Beck. And the first one is OC. Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us in this quick game. But as you saw in the answers, almost everyone here knows a little bit about mental health, and it's important to keep discussing about mental health to promote awareness and to as the importance of mental health as a public health issue, which is why we wanted to start this first episode of the second season of EPHSA Talks regarding to discussing mental health. So I'm going to give the microphone to Bonnie so that he can present our next speaker, which is Aida Vals Esteban. Bonnie?
Thanks a lot, Samia. May we know who MA is? MA?
Yeah, let's
Can
check.
you show your face?
MA is me.
Oh, ME is Manu. Congratulations, Manu. And then Beck, where's Beck? Is Beck here? I think she got disconnected. How about OC?
No, Beck is there. Beck Archer. Were you the second in the podium?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah. There is Beck.
congratulations.
Congratulations, Beck. How about OC? Where is OC?
Who's your favorite Honduran? Of course.
Oh, of course,
Woo!
psychologist. So
Yes.
that's
Congrats, chica.
okay. Congratulations, Odette, Beck, and Manu. Let me share my screen again. So now we'll now proceed to the second segment of this episode of EPHSA Talk, which is the Alumni Spotlight. And our topic for this segment is working in mental health from a public health perspective. Our speaker for this session, as mentioned by Samia, is Aida Esteban. Aida is a psychologist and Europubhealth alumna who earned her Master in Public Health from Granada and her Master of Science in Leadership in European Public Health from Maastricht University, graduating with honors. Prior to joining the Europub Health Program, Aida completed a master's degree in health psychology, and she currently serves as the EPH and EPHSA Mentorship Program officers. Please join me in welcoming Aida with a round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Bonnie. Can I share? And thank you, everyone, because I see many familiar names as well. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. And also, I would like to say that, yes, I'm going to talk about a little bit about my career, but I think it's also going to complement some of the things that Sally said, because I'm also going to talk a little bit about how I see or what I've learned from what is mental health in the public health sector. But I think it's also very much related to my experience and why I decided to study European public health, because I was working as a therapist for a while. I worked with different communities. I worked with refugees, with asylum seekers, also with people experiencing homelessness. And at that point, one of the things that I realized is that, or that it felt that I needed a change, was because I think it is important, the work that we do as an intervention. I think we have to treat people, but I felt that there is also a huge need in prevention activities. And I think this goes very well with what Sally was discussing as well. And this is when I started to look into public health and just look in my options to see how I could work more towards the prevention, and not only the prevention, but also changing contextual factors. Because one of the things I also understood, especially when I was working with refugees or asylum seekers, is that the therapy, the psychological interventions were very important at that point, but it was also more important for them to have a proper house, to have a proper employment, and to have a proper social supports. And I just felt like I wanted to work doing this. And this is when public health came and I started this master's. Um, just to continue, I wanted also to say that some of, or most of the examples that I'm going to give are from the European perspective. And I'm sorry about it because I know many people here are not from the EU and they might be interested in other areas, but most of the work I've done is in a European context. And now I'm also doing a traineeship with the European Commission, and we looked into European projects. So this is what I'm most familiar with, but it would be super nice if maybe after people want to bring like ideas or like concepts from their own countries or how it works there, because that would be also very interesting for me. First, I had some data here just to show also a little bit why mental health is a public health issue. And I think Sally already explained it very well. But to me, I wanted to highlight as well, and related to what she was saying, and what I will say later is there was this Eurobarometer and this survey in which European citizens highlighted that the most important factors to achieve good mental health were living conditions, financial security, physical activity, and also social contact. And I think this says a lot about the type of work that is required and where we have to put the focus, and probably also where the job opportunities are gonna come. Because again, she already put the mental health definition, of course, but I wanted to highlight here that the same way as we do with physical health, mental health is not the mere absence of mental health issues, and it is a basic human right, and it's crucial to personal, community, and socio-economic development. With this, I wanted to talk a little bit just to introduce the topic as well, or where I'm doing my work now on the psychosocial model, because we know that until the 90s, the biomedical model was the one dominating the approach that we saw physical and mental health. There was a lot of focus on illness, treatment. And as I said, I still felt, or while working as a psychologist, I felt that still there is a lot of focus on treating. And I think now there is also a tendency to look at mental health more at the individual level. I think everyone, like we are encouraging people to work to therapy, to work on their mental health. And I think this is super important. But I think it is also important to understand that mental health, it's influenced by many other factors. And this is what, or when we talk about the determinants of health and the determinants of mental health. And again, here is where now there is a lot of work being done at the European level. And I believe maybe we can discuss this after at a global level. But we know that there are many factors that affect mental health. This is what we call the determinants of mental health. We have social, we have the commercial, which I thought it would be important to mention, and also the digital, which are like very new, but I also thought it was worth to mention. At this point, where I want to focus or where I want to put the attention is at the social determinants, especially because here is where we talk about working in education, employment, working on the neighborhood, working in healthcare accessibility, working on this economic stability, the community context, the housing, the different life events. And this is what I mean when I was saying that we have to, or it's important to work from a broader perspective. And from this, I wanted to point now all the different ways in which we can address mental health from a public health perspective. We can work on promotion. Of course, these include initiatives that promote mental health, mental well-being, such as campaigns to reduce the stigma, or also campaigns to encourage healthy lifestyles. There is a lot of European projects focusing on this at the moment. There is also a lot of work, or starting to be a lot of work on prevention, early detection, reducing risk factors, so targeting all these determinants that I was talking about, screening, surveillance, research. I don't know, like I think here many people have a psychology background, and I don't know if when you are doing your master's assignments are trying to focus on mental health. That's what I try to do all the time. And I struggle a lot with data. I struggle a lot with finding public health or public mental health data. And I think this is also something that Sally mentioned. And I think, again, no, we have to encourage and we have to advocate for better research, better data, because we still know very little, and especially at a population level. Also, one of the areas that there is a lot of work now, it's advocacy and policy change. And this is what my master's thesis was about. And this is the main area that I wanted to discuss as well and encourage everyone to keep it in mind, because we have different backgrounds. And of course, we are all going to work in public health from different perspectives. And I think this topic that of course, is very much related to my interest, but I think it applies to all the sectors because it's what we call, or what we say, it's mental health in all policies. And this is kind of a new concept. It comes from the health in all policies approach, but it tries to promote population mental health and well-being with actions in the health sector, but also in non-health sectors, such as education, employment, housing, environment, culture. The idea is to bring or to show the positive aspect effects that targeting mental health or considering mental health could have in a population level. For example, at this moment, we already know that in education, integrating mental health is a key factor for academic success, for student retention, for reducing risk-taking behaviors. And Sally already mentioned, but the promotion of mental health in the workplace can also reduce absenteeism, can bring better productivity. So with this approach, we try to target or to consider mental health from different perspectives and not only from the health perspective. I did my thesis focused on employment policies, and I reviewed workplace legislation of 3 European countries, and I was trying to find mental health considerations based on a framework from the WHO. And I was very surprised. The framework is focused on prevention, promotion, preventing exposure to psychosocial risks, and also integrating individuals and supporting individuals who already have a mental health issue. And when I was reviewing the policies, I was very surprised to see that none of the policies really covered all the aspects of mental health that were suggested by the framework. All the measures were spread, and of course there was legislation setting limits on working hours. There was also legislation on harassment, which we know this has an impact on mental health, but there was no clear definition and terminology related to mental health if we compare it to the ones that are there for physical health. So here we see that there is room for improvement, of course, and also a lot of room for us as public health professionals to work and to bring our perspective in. How do we include mental health in all policies? There was, and I have it in my next slide, but there was a joint action created at the European level with where several experts, and there were different projects discussing mental health priorities. And one of the topics was mental health in all policies. And these are some of the areas that they suggested or they think are important to include mental health in all policies. So for example, an explicit inclusion of mental health in laws that address health, but also laws that address other areas. It's important to have this mental health component. It's also important to start including mental well-being impact assessments. I think, or from what I read in the report, at the moment, England is one of the countries that is starting to do mental well-being impact assessments to see all the benefits that mental well-being can have in different areas. Also, including electronic welfare reports. So this is like different administrative areas in the government have to report their welfare status. So this way you can also see how considering mental health in different aspects can also have positive impact. Then we will have, sorry, I think I passed it. Yeah. We would also, another action to be taken would be to measure mental health on a population level. So we could have more data, and also we could also explore outcomes and have results to see how these interventions are actually working. Increase mental health literacy as well at the population level, but also increase mental health literacy across sectors in healthcare professionals, teachers, people working in government, to understand what mental health is, to break the stigma that is behind mental health as well, and to be able to support and provide um, the right opportunities to people. And finally, establishing cross-sectorial and national regional government agencies. Again, this would be to have an agency that works across sectors and can communicate and talk to each other, so they can, because at the moment mental health is for the health sector, but it's not in other areas. So these are all aspects in which we as public health professionals can contribute. Finally, here, I'm not sure how am I doing with time, so I think I'm gonna just try to finish here. I have some resources of different approaches that Europe is taking to include mental health in all policies. There was a communication with a very comprehensive approach to mental health. So if you're interested, I would suggest that you look at it, because there are like 20 flagship initiatives with priorities for mental health across Europe. And this can also serve as a guide on to show where are the key areas in which we as public health professionals or psychologists with public health can work in. Um, Finally, as a key message, what I wanted to highlight here is that public mental health, it's an element that has been overlooked, that there is more attention now, and that we now understand that mental health and physical health are integrated, are codependent, and that, of course, many mental health and many common mental health issues are shaped by the social, economic, physical, cultural environments. So there is a lot of work to do in relation to the determinants of mental health. And because we come from different backgrounds and we are going to work in different areas, I wanted to highlight that effective interventions to promote mental health and prevent mental health issues require actions in sectors that are health and also non-health sectors. And here is where the mental health in all policies approach comes into place. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can always contact me as well.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Aida. We are very proud of you as students of EPH and what you are doing. I would also like to ask you the question sent by someone earlier about navigating a career in mental health in the field of public health. Can you, give more information based on your experience?
Yeah, I think to be honest, or what I'm feeling at this moment is that many people are interested in having psychology professionals in their public health teams. So at the moment, I'm doing a traineeship with the European Commission in one of the sectors where they fund non-communicable disease projects at the European level. Many of these projects are in mental health. And I see that in this, there is a lot of funding in health, but also in mental health, and coordinating these projects, implementing these projects. I feel like it really requires someone with a mental health background. So this could be an opportunity. And as I said, if we look at the comprehensive approach of mental health, there you can see different initiatives, and you can see where the European priorities are and where the projects, in what areas the projects are being implemented. For example, there is a lot of actions and projects in suicide prevention, and this is where psychologists, but also psychologists with a public health background would really fit in yeah.
Okay, thank you very much once again, Aida. Aida will stay until the end of our webinar, right? Right, Aida?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
to those who have questions for Aida, feel free to send them to our group chat and we'll go back to them after our last segment. Okay, thank you once again, Aida. Now let us proceed to the last part of this webinar. This segment will be for this segment we will have one of our current EPH students a speaker. I think the speaker for this segment is the first current student to be a speaker of an EPHSA talk. So let us all congratulate her. She has a background in psychology and she is currently in her first year in the EPH program. Let us give the time to Aida Fadel. Anna?
So, hi everyone, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to be the first student to talk in the EPHSA Talks. Gives me like just a little pressure, you know, high expectations. So I'm Anna, I'm from Brazil. I'm a psychologist too, with postgraduate studies in neuropsychology and collective health. And I'm currently doing my first year here in Sheffield, UK. So I'm a fresh international student. Tonight, I would like to address the challenge we face as international students. So what are these challenges? What strategies we can apply to them, and how to maintain our mental health through this experience, because it can be really wild. So just to start, it's essential to remember that nearly all students studying abroad will face a challenge. You know, I think all students from EPH can be considered international students. So we will face this challenge. They can vary depending on our individual backgrounds or countries of origin and our personal experience too, but it's very likely that we will face this challenge. You know, for example, even two students coming from the same country, like Brazil, they will experience challenges in very different ways. So considering that EPH receives students from all around the world with really diverse backgrounds, it is certain, I can say, that this challenge will vary, but for sure they will exist. So that's why I think it's really important session tonight for all our community. The first challenge I would like to address, and I think is the most common challenge for all international students, it's being away. So it's about like the distance, you know. This involves being away from many things like home, family, friends, and basically the people and environments that feel familiar and comforting to you. So even for students from nearby countries, we receive a lot of students from Europe. There can still be many unfamiliar aspects being an EPH student. So this can include being away from familiar foods, cultural norms, and even weather. And for that, UK students can relate. The weather can be really different depending on your country of origin. So it's a lot of adaptations. But being away from everything that is familiar, you know, so this lack of familiarity can have a huge impact in our experience, and it affects not only our performance at uni but also our mental health as students. So the second challenge, and can be a very delicate one, is the financial challenge. This year we are in a very unique situation, because in this year, the first year for us, all students are self-funded ones. So the actual costs are very different, can be very different from what we are expecting. And there is like a sense of urgency to find part-time jobs, and also a concern about how we can balance this with our performance at uni. So this scenario can make financial concerns especially intense, and it can be very, very overwhelming. So because financial challenges touch on our most basic needs, So managing this financial challenge can feel a little demanding. Many students may struggle with the cost of living, so they may face bureaucratic tasks like opening bank accounts, managing monthly bills. The financial challenge can be extended to those at home. So if your family are supporting you and they may face financial challenge too, this can be very overwhelming for you. You're really far away, so it can impact hugely our mental health. There's also a sense of pressure if you're a self-funded student and someone is supporting you financially. So you may feel like you have to meet some expectations. You have to prove that this financial sacrifice were justified. And we can also address the financial dependency, because this can also affect our mental health. And I'm saying this as a self-funded student. In this year, you're a lot of self-funded students. And all these financial stresses can lead us to sleep issues, irritability, low self-esteem, and in some cases, even depression. So I consider this one a very important challenge for us this year. So the third challenge for many international students is the language, especially for those who are non-native speakers of the language used in the students. So in EPH, we have students studying in English, in Spanish, and French. As a neuropsychologist, I can confirm that even if you navigate pretty well in your second language, your performance will be different, okay? It will, for neurological reasons. So the brain has to work harder. Your listening skills, your speaking skills don't flow as naturally, which can make your learning more exhausting because there's more information to process. It is often requires, and I included here, to adapt our study methods and discover like what is the best approach. So for me in Portuguese, I really like to take notes during classes, but in English, this has to be different. I cannot take notes during classes, so I had to adaptate my study methods, you know. There's another thing about language, and there's a very interesting one. The language can even impact our personality, because research suggests that when we switch language, the way we think and express ourselves can change drastically. So our voice change, this can even have an impact on our identity, in our mental health. And this is a very nice subject. I suggest like another EPHSA talks just about that. So how can we approach and manage this challenge? Because I called like just 3, but I know there's a lot of challenges we can face. So first thing, it's one thing to understand in theory this challenge, but another thing to actually live through them. So for example, at EPH, there's a webinar every year about the program, and students often share what are the main challenges, they share tips, and this is very helpful actually. And by the way, thank you so much for the surviving guide. That was really helpful for me, but it is a completely different thing to actually be here and experiencing this, you know. So when we first consider becoming international students, it's essential to us stay connected to our goals. So every decision, we have to ask ourselves, why do I want to study this? Why do I want to go to this particular place? What do I want to achieve? What is motivating me to leave my country and all that is familiar to me? So what is motivating you in the first place to become an international student? You know, and the answer for all these questions may change over time, and you don't have to be like 100% sure about it. But having strong convictions and a good amount of self-knowledge are really helpful in going through hard times, because we will face hard times. So one exercise we often do in cognitive behavioral therapy is to picture things in a different scale. So when we consider like a challenge, a struggle, we have to think about this experience in the long term. So whatever you're facing, it won't last forever. When we're facing these problems, we tend to look at them strictly in the short term, which can make the problems seem much bigger and harder than they actually are. So try to picture this challenge in a long term. Our masters will take like 2 years maximum, I hope. So picture this challenge in 5 years. What size this challenge will be in 5 years? This can be really helpful. So leading to the final section, how we can maintain our mental health. Well, there's a variety of ways for doing this, and psychologists like to answer like, it depends, and it really depends because it's really subjective. But when moving abroad, we need to face this experience as an opportunity to discover more about ourselves and to embrace new experiences. But at the same time, we need to remember our essence. We need to stay connected to who we are and what makes we. So for that, keep in touch with your family, with your friends. Bring some of the familiarity to your new life. Keep your roots alive. So to take care of our mental health, we also need to take care of our physical health, because they are so connected. So we can prioritize exercise. And if you're struggling with something, you also should consider doing therapy. I know there is, most universities have a mental health department for students facing this issue. So it's worth checking out this service too. Overall, it's nice to try to establish a routine, because routines can give our lives a sense of stability. So even if you're not like a systematic person, it is important for our brain to find patterns in our daily lives. So I'm sure this will also bring benefits to your studies too. So another helpful tip is to engage in activities that could give you the feeling that you're going somewhere, that you're progressing in something. So it's just a little reward to your brain. So this subject can go further deeper, and we are so complex. We are so different people, different students. But the most important thing is to prioritize your well-being, and there's lots of ways to do so. Bonnie, I hope all the students here are taking good care of your mental health. And I wish that all international students can find a way of dealing with this challenge in a successful way. I'm here if anyone wants to talk about it. And thank you so much for listening.
Oh, that's very nice to hear, Anna, that you are there for the other EPH students in case they are having some problems. So thank you very much for that offer. It's what time is it? It's 7:15, but we can still maybe entertain a few questions for Aida and for Anna. There are some people who sent me a message. We can give them time to verbalize their questions. So if you have questions, please turn on your microphones. Let me call Odette because she messaged me and she is here. Odette, would you like to ask your question directly to Aida?
That, Bonnie, please don't, just a quick message. Please don't forget to fill out the participation register form.
Yeah.
It's in our chat, in the Zoom chat. And yeah, we can go on with the questions. Don't forget to fill out the form.
Yeah. Thanks, Samia, for the reminder about the registration. Odette?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bonnie. You should have told me you were calling on me. But I was just like listening to what you guys were saying, and um, and just like the different ways, like how like the challenges that we might face. But do you guys have any recommendations how as students we can support each other in this time? Because like whenever there's like someone has like maybe they're struggling with their mental health or something, we always tell like, oh, like just get close to your friends, like don't stay alone. But like how as a friend and how like you reach out to others and how do you support those friends that may be struggling with any kind of mental health issue? Thank you.
Thanks, Odette. Anna or Aida?
Well, I can answer that. I think that it's not every time we will like solve each other's problems, but to have the empathy that knowing that everybody is in the same boat, everybody is experiencing the same thing, everybody's here as international students can give us a sense of community. So this could be really helpful. Although you're not here with your family, with your friends, there is nothing about this place and these people that are familiar to you. You can make these people familiar to you, so this sense of community that you're part of something bigger than you will cannot may not actually solve this challenge, solve this problem, but can help you go through this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. Would you like to add anything, Aida?
Yeah, well, I think I was going towards the same direction. I think the feeling of being connected and knowing that you have a community there, and I don't know how you do it in like different places, but maybe like trying to have like some like social events, organizing social events, even if not everyone attends, but it is nice to know that there are certain plans in which you don't have to make the effort to look for people. Maybe when you're struggling with your mental health, you don't have the energy or you don't have the initiative to start these plans or to start conversations. But if these plans are already set there, maybe that could also help. But of course, like it really depends on the person and the situation. But 100% this being connected and having a community there, I think it's super important because feeling lonely is it's very hard.
Yeah, that is true. And we would like to thank our EPH students who have initiatives about mental health or supporting their fellow students who are having problems. I remember one of our fellow students, Alessia. Alessia, I think, is here. Initiated some activities when we were in REN about mental health. Alessia, if you'd like to share anything, feel free to turn on your microphone. But there's another question sent to the chat. Let me read it. It's addressed to Anna.
And
Uh,
also, can I add something? Since we
oh,
are
yes.
talking about this, I think it's also, and I don't know if many of you already thought about this, but I think it's also important to know that when someone is struggling, that person might not need help like right away, like sometimes just being there, listening is enough. Like we tend to, or that's at least what I experience around me. Someone is sharing their issues and we are trying to find solutions. And sometimes the person doesn't need a solution. The person just needs you to be there and just hold the hand and be like, whenever you need it, we can look for solutions together. But just take your time and I'm here. Because also that takes a lot of like pressure out of us. I have some people would come to me like in during the APH and be like, this person is struggling with this. What can I do? Nothing. Just listen and be there for the person, and then you'll see from there. But sometimes that's all we need.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes being there is what the person needs. Thank you for that, Aida. Okay, there's a participant here who is interested about applying for Europub Health, and she has a question for Anna. She said, I'm considering to apply for Europubhealth Masters, and I too have a background in psychology, but it's only a bachelor's degree. Is it realistic for people who are not psychologists or do not have any other title to apply for EPH? I can answer this yes. But yeah, would you like to say anything, Anna? Or both Anna and Ida have psychology backgrounds.
I think it is. I mean, I think it also depends on your experience. Like with the Europub, it's always like that. If you are concerned about being accepted or not, I think, yeah, it really depends on like the other people who also applied and the experience that you like, maybe working experience that you already had, the motivations that you are showing. In my case, for example, the first time I applied, I only had my bachelor's and I had no international experience. And then I was not selected. But then a few years later, I applied after my master's and also some international experience. And then I got it. And I don't know which one was the reason, but I think sometimes it also depends on who applies. But I think it would make sense to me to have like a bachelor's in psychology and then a public health master's. I mean, that would be a very nice way to complement it.
Yeah, thank you.
But
Thank you.
of course, everyone can say something here. I guess we all went through the process, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anna, would you like to add something?
I think this can vary a lot. I know that it's not like necessary to have other experience, beyond your bachelor's. It will depend on your goals. If you want to have a work experience before coming to a master's, or if you really want to go straight forward to a master's, it is very subjective. And as a good psychologist, I will answer like it depends on a lot of things. That's it.
Yeah,
But
thank you. Thank you.
also, sorry, I'm the
ahead.
type of person who would say you have nothing to lose in applying. Like you already
Yeah.
have the no, and that's always my approach as well with many things that I've done in my life. So I just try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But
That's what I also wanted to say. If you are interested in the program, apply.
yeah,
Just
100%.
apply. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Ida and Anna, and thank you very much to everybody who joined us this evening. It's already 7:24. Yeah. Let me now turn over the microphone to Samia, who will give us a few announcements and thank everybody for participating. Samia?
Thank you, Bonnie. And well, thank you, Ada. Thank you, Anna, for being such a good speakers and such a nice having this nice interaction with the questions. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for participating and being part of this space. This was our first episode of the second season of EPHSA Talk, which is a platform, let's say, that we inherited actually from the previous cohort of the EPHSA, the Student Association of the EPH program. And we decided to continue because we believe in the importance of having this space and raising awareness and keep having discussions regarding to public health topics. So therefore, we invite you, everyone, to join our next webinars. This is actually open to everyone, so invite your friends, your colleagues, and to join us as well. And as well, if you want to be a speaker, please write us. We are going to leave you like our social media, so you can just send us a message or email, and we will reach you out. So I'm going to speak about like this first announcement. The first announcement is that we are back as EPHSA Talk. So all the webinars will be held the last Wednesday of each month. So, and it's going to be always at the same time, 6 p.m. Paris time. And we're going to send the invitation, the calendar invitation, so that you don't miss the webinars. There is going to be one webinar each month, as I said, the last Wednesday of each month, like this month, and go on. In the upcoming sessions, we'll be discussing important public health topics regarding to nutrition and healthy eating habits, vaccination, chronic disease management, health disparities and equity in public health, the impact of climate change on health, etc. So join us, like you're invited to be a speaker and to be a participant as well. And the last announcement is that to follow us. So I don't know, Bonnie, if we are sharing the screen. We're going to share like this QR code so that you can join us, like follow us in our social media, mostly Instagram and LinkedIn, and stay tuned for all the activities that we have for this year as EPHSA cohort 2024-2025. That's everything. Thank you so much and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this first episode of EPHSA Talk.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samia. Just another announcement. It's just an ad for those who are interested in applying for the next cohort of Europubhealth. The application is still open. Again, don't hesitate to apply. We have prospective students here, and we are organizing a webinar for prospective students. It's this December. We will announce about the activity very soon. Thank you very much.